I've been doing some research on how to make my videos more popular, so in the style of more popular YouTuber Mr Beast, I will be recording this review of John Wick Chapter 4 while I'm being chased IRL by an FBI agent. I have left an FBI agent tied up in my basement, and I have on my person $100,000, and if he can catch me, he gets the $100,000. I have a GPS tracker on me so he can follow me at his leisure. Sadly, my videos are all in an audio format, so you won't actually be able to see what's happening. It doesn't matter though, I'll narrate instead, and you'll just have to use your imagination. I did think about hiring a hitman to end my life like Mr Beast did in one video, but the hitman told me that in order to end my life, I would first need to have one, which was a bit rude. So while I'm driving John Wick 4, it's been getting some glowing reviews. It's well received on Rotten Tomatoes with critics and audience, as well as on YouTube and IMDb, and I finally got around to watching it. At first I was enjoying the film quite a lot, but as it went on, I started to enjoy it less and less. I don't want to offend people that liked it, and I'm not saying that you can't like it. I don't want to start an argument. There are good things in the film. Just be aware before you go and see it of what it is. It's a pretty much 3-hour long action sequence, and I found myself dozing off after about an hour during an action sequence as Interchangeable Man number 250 got shot in the face. I'm not sure what the death toll of the total film is, but if it passes 1,000 I would not be surprised. So should you go and see John Wick Chapter 4? I would say that depends on you. From the current reviews there's a good chance that you will like it, but there may be some confirmation bias going on. The people keenly going to see the film would presumably be people that like the other 3 John Wick films and like what they had to offer. So they will probably like this film that offers much the same things. But if you didn't like the other films, you probably won't like this one. Or if you don't like the sound of a near 3-hour film that's pretty much a long action sequence, I'd catch it later on streaming or just give it a miss. And I was unsure of whether or not to even do this review, because there seems to be such an outpouring of love for this film, and I found myself in the awkward spot of not liking it that much. But I thought it was best to tell the truth and tell people what the movie is before they pay money to go and see it and end up watching something that's not really for them. But feel free, if you love the film, to go to the comments below and tell me what a bender I am if you must. No sign of the FBI agent yet. I drove away and I dropped a telegraph pole across the road, and I'm currently hiding in a hedge maze. Ooh, is he going to catch me? The movie starts up, and for starters, there's a shocking lack of LGBT representation, so that actually means 0 stars out of 69. I'm not sure why the film didn't strike a chord with me. I'm genuinely not being a contrarian here, I promise. The film has a runtime of some 2 hours and 40 minutes, and that 2 hours and 40 minutes is essentially one long action scene, albeit one that is quite well choreographed, and you'll probably see every form of violence you've ever thought of and quite a few you haven't in this film. In some of the action sequences, Keanu Reeves is maybe not looking quite as spry as once he was. He's 58 now. And the movie relies heavily on CGI in places, and multiple times it was quite clear to me that it was not real. The CGI went very uncanny valley-ish, especially in a scene later on where John Wick was doing donuts in a car while in a gunfight. The plot is very bare bones and just serves to guide Wick into the next action set piece. The film doesn't really bother with girly things like character development. Most of the cast aren't even characters, they're more like meaty mannequins there to get shot in the head. John Wick 4 doesn't quite have the depth of a more cerebral film like the Schwarzenegger movie Commando, and there are a lot of silly contrivances, but it's a John Wick film. So should you watch the movie? Well, it depends. Does that sound like something that you personally will like? Still no sign of the FBI agent, by the way. I'm currently dressed as an old man standing in a Walmart. I saw someone that could be the FBI agent, so I left the store and popped their car tyres with a pickaxe. Sadly, I later found out that car in fact belonged to a disabled pensioner called Mabel. Now, I like action movies, but to me this film felt like maybe going home with someone and gently making love, and after you've both peaked, your partner wants to go again, and again, and again until after about the 10th time you just kind of feel numb. Excuse yourself and go to the bathroom, and when you go back to bed your partner throws back the covers and says, "Are you ready for round 2? That is the way I felt after an hour of this movie. Or, you know, Beethoven's Ode to Joy, how it carefully builds to a beautiful crescendo over time. Imagine if that piece of music was instead all crescendo, played at ear-splitting volume without the build-up, and the crescendo looped for nearly 3 hours. This film for me may be the best example ever of how you can have too much of even a good thing. I'm now on my way to board a plane. I was about to board the plane, but I realise I'm not sure in all this time I've even seen the FBI agent at all, and I'm starting to think maybe he didn't get out of the ropes in the basement. I should maybe go back and check on him. John Wick Chapter 4 gets right into the violence very early on. It's filled with things that I like. As background, John Wick is an assassin, part of a worldwide group of many such assassins working under the oversight of a body called the Top Table, and operating out of branches of a hotel called the Continental that operate worldwide. The Top Table want Wick dead for breaking their rules, so he now has a multi-million-dollar bounty put on his head. The table has put an enforcer in charge of getting rid of Wick, a French guy called the Marquis. There is a scene early on where a representative of the Top Table is meeting with the manager of the New York Continental and his aide, and this scene seems tailor-made to make me happy. This scene has Clancy Brown, Ian McShane and Lance Reddick, who will be sadly missed, and this is all stuff I like. I even kind of like Bill Skarsgård playing the Marquis, but he didn't really get the build-up in the film to either be hateful enough or enough of a threat to make the showdown with Wick interesting. He gets a couple of scenes where he's ruthless, maybe sadistic. The movie seems to assume that everyone will want him to come to a sticky end just because he's arrogant and French and dresses quite flamboyantly, but it's still not quite enough for me. I'm not sure if the makers of the film are under the impression all French men dress like Liberace, but that is kind of the way that they dress the Marquis in this film. The Marquis brings in someone to end John Wick, a character called Kane, played by Hong Kong action star Donnie Yen. He is playing a retired hitman, and they're threatening his daughter to get him to come out of retirement and end John Wick, who is an old friend and colleague of his. His daughter is playing violin in Paris, and she's a bit of a cutie. I even kind of like Donnie Yen, even if I don't much like the company he keeps. His daughter is a violinist playing Chopin's Nocturne No. 20, which is a lovely piece of music, and so far so good for John Wick. I'm going to put up a link to my favourite version of that piece of music if you want to listen to it. It's by violinist Bom Sori Kim, and on piano, Rafael... oh god, how do you pronounce that? Blechat? So you see, I don't hate everything. I promise, I do like things. All sorts of things. Honestly, I like Mexican food, I like rabbits' noses. Even if me not liking this film, while everyone else seems to love it, may give you the impression that I hate everything. John Wick travels the world, going to Japan, Germany, France, all while slaughtering faceless goons with a vast array of weapons. Everyone is trying to kill John Wick as usual, until there's a showdown with the Marquis in Paris, and the showdown didn't really work for me. I found the end to be a bit of an anticlimax, firstly because they hadn't really built up the Marquis enough for me, and John Wick has a formal duel with pistols against Kane at the end, and they have built Kane up, but the formal duel doesn't allow either him or Wick to demonstrate their skill. When it looks like Wick has lost the duel, the Marquis steps in for the coup de grace, and Wick promptly shoots him. But it isn't exactly a happy ending. Wick was mortally wounded in the fight, it appears, so that will probably be the end of the John Wick series. But the way the film is going on at the box office, I would not be surprised if they brought it back for a 5th entry. They show John Wick's grave at the end of the film, but don't actually show him dying, so they could retcon it as a fake out and still make another film if they wanted to. I also just got back to where I tied the FBI agent up, and he did get out of the ropes, but it turns out that instead of choosing to chase me, he instead just got into the schnapps and sat around watching dubious content on the internet, using my internet, and with no little irony, his actions have probably now landed me on an FBI watch list, and he's now lying in a pool of his own vomit. I'm just going to be straight with you. It's all a bit of a fuck-up, really.
Those look good. A big salty clam would sure go great with this heat.